But it does seem like you enjoy instructing and doing the instructionals. Like that's one thing I think a lot of people take away from the content you put out is that you seem to really enjoy doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually, to be honest, the like especially making an instructional, I actually think in some ways making instructional is a really good way of training because it makes you. I mean, I'd say every instructional I've made, I actually learn quite a lot because I don't just. I think a lot of people, to be honest, just they kind of just go, oh, I'm just gonna show up tomorrow at at the filming studio and I'll tell them everything I know and then I'll go home. And whereas for me, I film it myself, I edit it myself, and I send it off. But it's usually like a 3 to 6 month process of making that instructional where I'll watch myself roll and I'll often I'll often teach something and then I might even film it and teach it and then because I know what I've said, and then when I'm rolling, I'm like, hey, I'm doing something different to what I said. Like
Right.
I pay more
Yeah.
attention. I'm like, I said on the video that I would do this, but I'm actually doing this. So then I can go back and I can add that in and put more context into it. And I think like you actually learn quite a lot when you have to verbalize it. And often you pick up a bunch of new concepts that you were doing, but you weren't aware of. And when you become aware of them, it actually makes you better. You actually start looking for those patterns a bit more in those positions. And I actually think that was a huge thing for the leg locks was, I'd filmed that instructional. I think I finished filming it maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before ADCC. And I'd been doing, constant re-editing and going back to it. And I really felt like that was a big part of the process of sharpening up my leg locks. So hopefully hopefully I can do some more of that in the lead up to this ADC. I feel like that, my guard retention now, I feel just from doing the guard retention instruction, I actually don't know how I managed to kick my guard before. Like a lot of the stuff I'm doing now, I just it's very different to what I was doing, a year ago.
Always evolving.
Yeah, it hasn't been tested by me. Like I haven't gone out and competed with it yet, but certainly from what I feel in the gym, I just feel so much more confident there. So I'm hoping that's the next big one that does translate across.
Now you mentioned, how doing the guard retention anthology is improving your guard retention. When you look at doing an instructional, do you look at it as something, all right, I want to get better at this, so I'll do an instructional on it? Or do you look at it as like, I'm really crushing it right now with guard passing, so I should do the guard passing anthology? Which way does it go?
Yeah. It can be either. Yeah, it can be either. It's usually something. I usually don't go, I'm going to make an instructional on that until I feel like I'm good at it. The guard retention was probably one slightly different in that because it's a collaboration with Ari, and Ari has really, really good guard retention, really high level. And that's like rolling with him. I was like, okay, I want to learn what you're doing. Like maybe because it's kind of a different. Has quite a different style. It's very like open guard based guard retention. I've always kind of tried to draw into some sort of like entanglement, a half guard or something to kind of connect to my opponent and then kind of try to fight off that way, like through layers that way. Whereas he plays a lot more open style, and I was never that comfortable in that open style, and that's probably why it's been a big shift for me is getting comfortable dealing with like kind of allowing people to be passed, not allowing them, but you kind of have a choice to kind of guide people to pass around, under, or through your legs, and kind of being comfortable for them to be going for the around and under, as opposed to just drawing them into some sort of entanglement where they go through. With Ari being so good with his, I kind of thought, well, I want to learn that, and we might as well, his knowledge combined with mine, we had kind of different styles of guard retention. We could probably put a good product together, and then in doing that, I feel like has been improved. And just usually like same with Ari, like a lot of the things that he was doing that he would then look at and go like, oh, I hadn't, now that I have to teach it, I see it differently. And sometimes I would notice something he was doing because I'm trying to learn his style. I'm like, well, I'm having issues here, like, and then I'd go, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, like that is different, like we kind of work out some good extra content, a lot of things that I don't think I've seen taught before. So not saying it doesn't exist, but yeah, definitely different to how I approached guard retention before it.
Well, I saw when you put out the preview for the anthology, like anthology is the right word to use for the guard retention anthology
Right.
because it is extensive. How much
Yeah.
how much were you planning the instructional and just kept realizing, oh, this is something else and something else and something else? Like, is it sort of naturally flow that way, or do you guys sit down and think these are all the topics we have to cover and work from there?
Yeah, I kind of like, but I don't just go in and film and like it's all, I always like plan it out and write it out. Um, and so I kind of have a general list, and then sometimes along there, it's like, sometimes you're like, oh, we're gonna, this is the topic, and you don't know, you could think that's going to take a minute, but it takes 5 minutes to go through a particular topic and so on. So it certainly can get quite extensive, and then, but I mean, my main thing with my instructionals is I'd rather like someone walk away from it and go like, okay, I don't, that like the answers are in there. I don't want them to walk away like, oh, like, yeah, but they didn't cover that. I wanted to
Right.
cover everything, but the problem with that is that it becomes very extensive and expansive, and it becomes almost too much information for someone to want to actually sit through. And that's not, I don't make my instructionals with the aim of someone sitting down and watching it like a movie and expecting to take in all the details that way. Maybe the conceptual part of it, like I go through some of the concepts and so on, like you can kind of sit down and watch that and you get it, right? But the technical side, I kind of expect people to go and, they might watch a little bit, go and train and go, geez, I'm having trouble with this. And then it should be quite easy for them to then identify the area they need to watch to fix the issue. And that's why I've got a long techniques list. The reason I have a long list is because I actually want people to be able to like find the thing they want and watch that, and not have to sit through, not have to sit through an hour of watching to hope that I cover something. They should be able to go, oh yeah, that's the area I'm having an issue with. I'm going to just watch that part. And then, the next time I have a different issue, I go to the next one. That's how I tend to do it. And that's why I try to have these big long lists because of that.
That makes sense. You want people
Yeah.
to know what they're getting.